who was your Colonel Parker?
Who was mine?
Yeah, you have your own Colonel
Well,
Parker?
you know, I think you have to go back to his I mean, and everybody has one of a moment where who was it that first saw you and said, I think you could be, for me, I think you could be an actor.
You're looking for trouble? We came to the right place.
As an actor, I think that you were born to play Elvis Presley's life. But I want to know, how do you absorb his essence to become him? What does it mean to you to play Elvis Presley's life?
Well, what it means is the greatest privilege I've ever felt. I mean, truly, I feel so lucky and blessed and grateful. And the thing for me was just every day following my curiosity, trying to find his humanity. And so there's the technical aspects of his voice and the way he moved and all those things, but which I obsessed about and spent many hours just doing nothing but watching footage of him. But it was all about who was he really, and what does it feel like to be inside of that, and look out of his eyes in those moments. And I just feel so lucky that I got to do that.
Looking for trouble? We came to the right place.
And now let's talk a little bit about Austin Butler. You said that he was born to this role, to play this role. Do you remember what was your first reaction when you saw him playing Elvis for the very first time?
There's this now famous tape that he sends me, and at the time I don't know that he and Elvis, they both lose their mums in the same year. And I don't know that he has a nightmare and wakes up and goes down to the piano and sings Unchained Melody and tapes himself. And I don't know that it's his agent who forces him to send it, not him. I see it, and it's not an audition. I just think this is someone whoever that is, and singing that song, I wish I could have an Elvis person like that. And then Denzel Washington rings me, and he comes in, and pretty much he comes in, and I just don't remember. I mean, he just sort of, from the day I met him and we started doing the process, he was just keep coming in. I was trying to explore it. I was trying to prove to myself that he was the wrong choice, not the right choice. And that's the reverse of what I usually do.
He was my destiny.
I wish to promote you, Mr. Presley. Are you ready to fly?
I'm ready. Ready to fly.
Baz said that you take this character with no hesitate, the Tom Parker. What do you see on this character to make you take it immediately?
Well, that's it exactly, that I had no concept of who this man is. I didn't know what he looked like. I didn't know what he sounded like. I had never heard him on film. I'd never seen him in clips. I didn't know what, if you had shown me a picture of Elvis and the Colonel in some place, I would have said, you know, who's the fat guy in the goofy hat? And they would have said, that is Colonel Tom Parker. And I would have said, no, Colonel Tom Parker is this whole different kind of thing. When Baz said, this movie is going to begin with Colonel Tom Parker saying, I didn't kill him. I said, okay, all right. This is a whole new take. This is a whole new examination of the Elvis Presley story that puts the stakes in it right off the bat. He said there would have been, Baz said, certainly there would have been no Colonel Tom Parker without Elvis Presley, but there would have been no Elvis Presley without Colonel Tom Parker. Now you could think, oh no, that the talent of the man would have certainly shown through. And I think that's true for a while. But it was Colonel Tom Parker that recognized that this is a one-of-a-kind artist, and that artistry has to be protected, and it has to come at a premium. Otherwise, you'll start giving it away for free. Like no small amount of Elvis's contemporaries did. Jerry Lee Lewis or Little Richard. Very, very quickly, they became sort of like cartoon versions of a very specific era in rock and roll music. And Elvis could have been that too, were it not for Colonel Tom Parker.
I'm on before the sheet, and nobody's gonna remember me.
Yeah. And as you said, who was Elvis Presley? I want to ask you, what do you think about Elvis Presley before you played this role? And what do you think now, after you play Elvis Presley? Did something or someone change your perspective?
Before I did this, I was familiar with his music. I'd seen some of his films. I'd never read a book on his life. I hadn't seen most of the documentaries, so I didn't know much about his life. I knew his work. So many things struck me, but he for one, he lifted off into this status that is beyond. It's like there's people who walk into the house where he was born and they kiss the floor. It's like they revere him almost in a godlike way. And then there's other people who dress up as him for Halloween, or there's competitions out there to see who's the best Elvis impersonator and all those Elvis tribute artists, all these things. And so, but he was such an incredibly sensitive man, a spiritual man, really loving father, and a complicated human being that was very complex. And so there's no way to like pinpoint who is Elvis kind of thing, but I learned so much about him that I feel a lot of empathy towards him.
I'm thinking about cutting it up with hound dog.
Ooh, hound dog.
Speaking about Colonel Parker, this series is the one who found, who discovered, who managed Elvis Presley career. But I want to know, who was your Colonel Parker?
Who was mine?
Yeah, you have your own Colonel
Well,
Parker.
you know, I think you have to go back to his over. I mean, and everybody has one of a moment where who was it that first saw you and said, "I think you could be, for me, I think you could be an actor." And it was at Cleveland, Ohio. It was a gentleman named Vincent Dowling, who took a look at me in a show and said, "I think if you decided to do the hard work, you could be an actor. Now, please come and work for nothing at my theater." So I jumped on that chance. Then after that, you know, if you're lucky, you go through a number of folks that may see you as you are, may not see you as the potential that you could be. And I had some guys like that. You know, I had a manager that after a while I found was more constricting than he was liberating. And in that time, you part ways and you start following. I think you just follow your own sense of what is a yes and what is a no. And I had said yes way too many times.
Look at the trouble. Look right in my face.
He had no idea what he had done.
I mean, after all the learnings that you had in this movie about Elvis' life, what sort of Elvis do you think people maybe don't know yet and they have to know? Maybe it's a tricky one. So.
Besides all those things I just was saying about his sensitivity and all those things, like really the humanity, the thing I'm excited for, especially young people and people who just don't know or they're not familiar with, is seeing the young rebel Elvis. That performance of Trouble, those moments when he was like a wild animal on stage. The birth of punk rock. I mean, it was really like that exciting Elvis that people kind of forget because they may just think of the films of the 60s or something like that. But also, it's kind of these two bookends. It's that like fiery, animalistic Elvis, and then it's the 70s, like late 60s and 70s Elvis that is just, I have so much admiration for and just love so much.
I think it was particularly in 1968, that fear, that lack of trust in his own abilities. You know, in 1968, he hadn't performed live in front of an audience since he had come back from the Army. He did that television special with Frank Sinatra, but even that's a television audience that was protected by. He was on somebody else's show. That 1968 comeback special was huge because Elvis, at one point, did exactly what everybody wanted to see from Elvis: Blue Suede Shoes, Heartbreak Hotel, You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog. He did all that, but then he sat down, deconstructed his music with those guys, with DJ Fontana and all the other guys, the rest of his band. And once that was over, he went off and presented only this brand new stuff. And I think that was as deep a throw as an artist is going to make at a moment where he either succeeds completely or he's dismissed as a has-been. And that he succeeded completely, but That was a deeply weighted fear that Elvis had.
His humanity, like, I guess everyone's a human being, but there might have been in Elvis, I think because of early shame for the father going to jail, loss of mother, always moving around, being born, growing up in an environment where, you know, being one of the few white houses in a black community, all these sort of different elements, he just more, when I say more human, more open-hearted, more sensitive, more vulnerable, which is why when you add that to a voice and a very good-looking person, you have someone that people start to think of as a god, but he's still just a person.
But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Congratulations for the movie.
Look at the trouble. Look right in my face.
He had no idea what he had done.